wake up in the morning, you know that this is not an ordinary day. Every performance is a most important performance. The pressure is high. It has to look good, it has to sound good. What I'm trying to do is to avoid human contact before. You're saving your energy. This is where you forget time. This is where the music takes over. We start with a litany, with a prayer, and we end with an orgy. It is a perfect circle. I'm dealing with the greatest geniuses in human history and playing their music. Yeah. Every little bit in this puzzle has to work. It also needs to fly. It needs to be something that people forget about everything by listening to this concert.
People are afraid to explore the different varieties of music out there. You want to just stick to what you know. You have to try it, and if you don't like it, okay, that's fair. It's something that you don't like, but you can't just go around just saying oh, I don't like classical music, and I ask you if you've listened to it and you say no. Because how do you know that?
Music is like a key, and the life is a door. Yeah. So use the music to open the door.
People base life off of something along the lines of a popularity contest, so they're going to tend to go with the trends. So not so much they don't have appreciation for classical music, just that they're not exposed to it enough to have an appreciation for it.
This music is filled with really human themes about love and poverty and struggle, and everyone can relate to those themes. It really is a universal language.
What's great about classical music and what it often can do is that it can reach you personally in a deep way that sometimes other music cannot.
I think music is a language. It's a way that people can speak to each other through eras, through countries, through cultures. And I think that's a really important part of the human experience.
I still remember the time in 2002 in St. Petersburg where a cup of coffee was $4 and a philharmonic ticket was $2. Concerts were sold out and people went because it was a respite. It was a sort of a sanctuary and a way to escape from the tough realities of everyday life.
It once was popular music. Italian operas were the equivalent of today's pop music. This music had some core of beauty and profundity in it that has meant that human beings have held on to it.
Music and art is part of being a human being. Every generation from the beginning of time, there's music and art. It's the unique thing about what makes us human.
Music is part of our life. We should really treasure it.
It is beginning and the end of everything for me.
The word itself is related etymologically to something having to do with magic. A master has this magical power to create something. It's a function of love and intensity. You love what you're doing and the number of hours that you put into it.
We started studying music and playing, practicing piano since I was five years old or something like that. And of course, I sang in a boy choir, practiced piano, I took violin lessons. I remember so well my family having dinner. There was always music playing in the background, either on the radio or on a record or a cassette tape. And so while we were talking, he was always listening to music as well. And in the middle of the most heated, most interesting moment of the debate or a conversation, my father was like, shh, wait, listen. And we all listened. My mother was always saying, okay, we listen now, can we get back to the conversation? But for him, there was absolutely no way that anything was more important. When we arrived in Kennedy Airport, I remember getting into this car. I've never seen a highway in my life before. It's 8 lanes of just car lights. And you thought, how am I ever going to be found here? I will disappear and never be noticed ever again. I come from a country of 1.5 million people. There were more people on that highway than in my entire country.
Well, here in New Jersey, we have a man who is already becoming world famous for his mature approach to conducting, yet he's only 20. Paavo Järvi from Rutgers.
3 years ago, their desire for artistic freedom brought the Järvi family from Soviet Estonia. His father still looms large in Paavo's musical thinking.
The reason I'm studying conducting and why I'm so interested in conducting is because of my father's example. When I came to this country, I went to Juilliard pre-college and graduated it with 1 year.
This summer, Paavo is off to study at a very exclusive conducting workshop in Los Angeles.
He walked in, quite old already, and then he stood on the podium to demonstrate something for the students, and he became a teenager. He was jumping up and down. He was, amazingly physical and emotional, expressive. You realize that how much he knew. We were sitting at somebody's apartment. Bernstein was there, and somebody put on a record. It was a Brahms symphony. And everybody tried to identify what it was, which performance it was, and we were all sort of trying to show off our knowledge. Well, it sounds like this and sounds like that. And we were listening to the surface, Bernstein was sort of listening and I hear war. And sure enough, it was a Furtwängler recording in 1945 when actually the bombs were being dropped on Berlin. And it was one of those moments when I just realized, okay, I can't even hear the essential things in music because I'm so busy and preoccupied with all the peripheral stuff.
Love and time equals mastery. If you love what you're doing, if you love music, you'll put in those proverbial 10,000 hours, and at a certain point, as they've demonstrated scientifically, you're going to reach a level where your brain is operating on another plane, and that you will naturally reach mastery.
I've seen students struggle with the competition. And this school has a lot of prodigies, but everyone is here for a reason, because everyone especially have something to say.
Walking into this school and being in that school, it's a parallel universe.
Curtis was founded in 1924 by Mary Louise Curtis Bach. She had this vision to create a small conservatory of the greatest young musicians on the planet. It is the hardest school to get into in the United States of any kind. These students are a little bit like Olympic athletes, and they train in the same way. I mean, complete commitment. Everyone here is on full tuition scholarship based purely on merit. And everyone shares some common experiences, and one of those experiences is even just the struggle to get into the school.
You know, I came from Florida, and in my town, I was the best pianist in the area. It was easy to feel a little comfortable, and when you come here, everyone is coming from their own country or place being the best. It makes you have to realize that there's something bigger. You know, music is bigger than all of us, really.
We moved here a year later, my mom and I, and she made a big sacrifice because she spent 2 years here while I was still in high school, away from my dad. He had to hold down the fort in Louisiana, and so it was a difficult 2 years for them just because they're over 1,000 miles apart.
I can't imagine which way my life would have been if I didn't go there.
Classical music's a very competitive marketplace.
You cannot possibly respond to all these inquiries, and you cannot possibly go to all of these showcases. So most often you go and hear someone because you've already been hearing about that person.
There's more talented musicians of a consummate skill than ever before, and the skill level gets higher and higher.
I'd love to be the music director of a major orchestra or a major opera company. I just want the opportunity to work with the best of the best on a consistent basis and know that every night on the podium I have a chance to create a great concert that serves my colleagues and that serves the community that I'm a part of.
In the beginning, you try to convince each orchestra, doesn't matter how small or big, that you are a good conductor. And if you convince them sufficiently, they will invite you back. When I first conducted Cincinnati Symphony, I remember just arriving here and being in downtown Cincinnati. The downtown was pretty depressing, frankly, at that time. Then I went to the rehearsal, and after the first rehearsal, I thought, there's something going on here. Because it was amazing. Just the way they played, the kind of attitude there was, the quality, something just was right.
The baton of Maestro Paavo Järvi gracefully leads for the last time in Cincinnati.
It's the final farewell for the music director of the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra.
One interesting thing is that people can play without a conductor. They don't need the conductor to play their parts. And that's something a good conductor realizes as well.
There are an infinite number of choices that a conductor makes in realizing a score. Subtle variations of tempo, subtle changes in dynamic levels, pushing and pulling against the beat. And every conductor does something differently. It's impossible to play a piece the same way.
Seeing the interaction between the conductor and the 80 people up there, I mean, it's amazing. Get 80 people all to play together at the same time. That's an incredible thing if you think about it.
That's what a great leader or conductor can do. He can bring everybody onto the same page, unite all the egos and people with their own agendas.
A conductor is like a coach in rehearsal and like a quarterback during performance.
A conductor is the mastermind behind the score. He is channeling the composer's intention.
Conductors are really the interpretation of the score.
It's a story about being a person, about being human. Every composer writes about their daily lives, but also about their hopes and dreams.
Practice makes things automatic, and it frees your mind up to think on a higher level.
You always study. I study on airplanes, I study whenever I have a day off, I study when I come back from a performance. You come home, you open the score, and you start looking at things.
I feel like whatever I do on stage, he reacts to. It's almost like when you're having a conversation with someone and they understand where you're coming from. I'll play something and I'll have a new idea on stage that I've never tried before. He's never heard me do. And he knows exactly what I'm going to do, somehow, even before I've ever done it before. And he's right with me on it. He isn't just accompanying, he's really contributing.
On the macro levels, understanding the whole, really understanding where everything fits together and the overall structure of the piece and the pacing of everything. And that's something that maybe not every orchestra member knows or will have thought about where their part fits in to everything to really make it come off in the best possible way. You're the boss, you know, it's knowing how to handle people. To have all those skills in one person is very rare, and that's why there's so few conductors, great conductors.
Already from the name, we are being misled. There's nothing classical, and you can go from medieval music, which is also characterized as classical music, to 20th century music that is minimalist music, like John Adams or Philip Glass, and it's also called classical music.
It's almost like a great coach for a sport. A conductor who doesn't have to be so technically brilliant at playing the violin has all of this experience. And all the different people they've had to deal with over the years, they have learned so much.
Bremen is an amazing place. It is a home of what I think is one of the great chamber orchestras, maybe in the world. One of the great things about this orchestra is the self-governing, completely independent, democratic way of making their everyday decisions, and they don't work for anybody else. They own the orchestra.
Music is communication between people. It's not an order given from one to the other. Very many conductors give you orders. Paavo communicates with you. He shares jokes.
By the way, this is my biggest fan. I have many fans. They are a self-governed orchestra. They are a very strong family to begin with. And they choose their conductors, they choose their management.
It's because the musicians are owners of the orchestra. They are shareholders. They are reliable not only for the notes they deliver on stage, they are as reliable for the figures in the balance sheets.
I feel that I am much more than just a conductor. I'm a fellow musician. I'm part of the family.
There's a very little rehearsal time sometimes, and the maestro, the conductor, needs to make sure everyone knows as fast as possible who's the boss. Paavo is great. The sort of authority you need in this situation comes extremely naturally to him. He doesn't need to sort of make believe that he's a different kind of person.
A great creative, a great musician, a great conductor, a great composer, they not only are technically brilliant, they have a feel for what I call the spirit of the times, the zeitgeist, and how to take all of their knowledge from the past and transform it into something new and on a much higher level.
Culture is everything. Culture is the quality of food. Culture is quality of architecture. Culture is music. Culture is words. Culture is everything. Everything. Being alive, it's culture.
Your main job as conductor is to inspire those who are playing for you. You know, inspire them to really dig deep into the score and find all this beautiful inner meaning.
It's one of those only countries that you can go at 4 o'clock in the afternoon because you want to eat.
and you go to a bar and there are people, elderly people dancing now. This is, and it is sort of surreal and it's really beautiful in many ways.
It's all about reacting. It's all about, going with the flow and understanding where you fit in and understanding when you have a part that needs to be prominent and when you have to lay back.
An orchestra in many ways is like a sports team. Everybody contributes. Everybody has to know exactly what their place is and what their duty is and how they fit in.
An orchestra needs to be unified to be seen as an orchestra, so you need the same clothing. So what do? You either wear all black shirts or you wear tails.
Like a good team, an orchestra that respects and likes each other always will play better.
That's why he comes up and gives me the hand. That's kind of symbolizing that he's shaking everybody's hands.
When the concertmaster shakes my hand, he's reminding me of the trust that exists. It's a symbol. They need to give absolutely everything from themselves.
We always have to be careful not to be too reverent towards the past. Tradition is a great thing, but also a very dangerous thing, because if tradition makes you feel like, well, this is the way it's always done, that means you're not going to find anything new.
Occasionally, we invite local students to come to the rehearsals. It's something we look forward to, and it's a good test. If we can't keep their attention, we know we have to try something different.
I played the bass since I started with 11.
I was 6 years old and I wanted to play the violin because I saw my grandfather playing the violin.
When I was 3 years old,
I was always in youth orchestras.
I even started with the cello when I was 4.
8, maybe 7. Where you can subtract 7 from 21 and find out how long I've been playing. No grey hair.
We learn from the previous generation. We just don't suddenly born from the womb and know how to speak English. That's the moral obligation. Passing on your knowledge, your expertise, your feel for what you do, and your love of what you do to the next generation.
The effect that music has on children in so many ways is mind-boggling. It helps their social skills, it helps their math skills, it helps integrate all aspects of life, and it all comes together in music and art.
Bringing this music to children, they are expanding those students' understanding of what human civilization can be. We should make the argument based on beauty alone, that to not know this music is to be cut off from one of the greatest sources of human expression, love, tragedy, suffering, and ecstasy that humans have developed.
It helps so much, to have something to go to when you're upset, because whenever someone makes me upset, I just go downstairs and I just practice, and I practice until, I feel, more calm and able to handle whatever situation.
I discovered something inside myself that I never knew I had. I came to realize that music, in my times of sadness or my times of happiness, it's always there. That's how I feel. I feel like music is always there for me.
Classical music is special. It's really special. It's like a bird fly on the sky.
There's a sense of history that I feel is sometimes lost in our current generation. We're sort of live in the moment generation, and if we just know the music that's the pop music that's playing today and just read the books that are on the top 20 bestsellers at the time, we don't understand anything about where it came from and where we came from.
Somebody has to open a door for you and say, okay, listen, come with me. Listen to this. What do you think of this?
I spend most of my life on tour. This is where I feel most comfortable. For an independent orchestra like this, tours are crucial. They create revenue, attract fans, and keep our reputation alive as one of the best orchestras in Europe.
If we make the wrong decisions, it might go downhill, the whole thing. This all makes us more close.
When you're a young orchestra, an unknown orchestra, or a young conductor, you have to prove yourself. The more exposure you have, a better track record you have. It's called reputation. The more difficult it gets for us because there is so much more pressure in trying to live up to all the things that you are expected to live up. Like all humans, we can have a bad day, we can have a difficult concert, things sometimes don't click, things happen. It is just a very human thing. We're not robots. So the pressure to remain in good shape, to be as good, basically, on every level, is even more pronounced.
We stick to strict schedule. The moment we arrive, we go straight to the rehearsals. There is no time to waste. Tensions are high. Mediocrity is the enemy. Music doesn't allow for mistakes. When you go on stage, there is an entirely different set of laws. You need to be as relaxed as possible.
A concert day, from the very beginning, when you wake up in the morning, you know that this is not an ordinary day. Around 2 o'clock or so, I always have a very big lunch. I go to sleep usually around 4, wake up at 7, take a shower, and I always find myself even in the shower kind of singing or thinking subconsciously or already in the performance. Have a cup of coffee and go straight to the concert hall. If I can walk to the concert hall, that's even better. Trying to arrive to the hall as late as possible, just so that you have only time to change and you're going on stage. What I'm trying to do is to avoid human contact before. You're saving your energy. You're saving your energy for the concert.
When you learn music, you're learning what has taken hundreds of years to accumulate. You've learned knowledge that goes back to the 15th, 16th, 17th centuries. All the great musicians that were before you and all the things they've learned are inside of you.
You go to work and your work is Mozart and Beethoven and Mahler and Brahms. You're dealing with some of the greatest minds and some of the greatest talents that ever existed.
It's really a rush, Like, no matter what you're playing, no matter what the audience is, like, I could be performing in front of 2 people and I still, feel the rush.
The high after a performance is really indescribable. You feel like you're on a cloud. It's really hard to come down.
So you have to figure out, what drives them. You have to figure out what they see as their mission as an artist. Because having a full calendar and going and performing all over the world is wonderful, but it sort of tends to get old very quickly. Trying to figure out what motivates an artist to get on that plane for the umpteenth time to play the same concerto yet again. Because there's a lot of pressure in the situation. Before you know it, you're in front of thousands of people presenting the result of your work. So it's really daunting, and you have to find something that makes it all worthwhile.
A huge component of mastery is the social area. You can be technically brilliant at what you do, at playing the violin, the piano, conducting, but if you're don't know how to deal with people, if you have no political skills, it neutralizes all of your talent and all of your skill. Nobody wants to hire you.
He has, I don't know how many concerts per year, like more than 100.
Conducting is a vacation to compare to what actual everyday life as a fundraiser, PR, press person, manager.
What was it like being in an orchestra with the person you're in a relationship with, that you share a family with?
It's great, actually. In the moment, it's our only opportunity to spend time just like we used to do before we got kids.
We are very happy for the moments we can spend together in the orchestra.
Because we can play together and, do all kinds of things and have parties together, and it's very nice.
You conduct all these big orchestras and you inevitably you have this feeling that you are somehow sort of in charge. And then you come and see your kids, you know, and they don't know or care, frankly, what you do. For them it's important that I am with them. I'm somehow just like not even so much talking to them, but just there, physically in the same room. I mean, people say, oh, Paavo, it must be really hard to conduct a concert. You know, it's a piece of cake to conduct a concert next to spending a day or even a half a day with two of my girls. One is 7, one is 9. Because the enormous energy and the just sheer joy of being alive, it is so unbelievably powerful that after I've somehow managed to calm them down and put them to bed at night, you feel like you've conducted, you know, the whole ring cycle. Papa, do you know, if you would bicycle, you know, from here to moon, do you know how many days it would take? And it's like, what? How many days would it take if you bicycle from here to moon? You just realize that there is an sort of parallel intelligence where all the things that you think you are mean nothing.
Paavo Järvi is one very interesting example of a conductor. He's one of the few conductors that I feel when I watch him that he controls the orchestra like an instrument, the way a violinist controls a violin.
Paavo is really dedicated to the music. He really cares about the music that he's doing. You can just feel that he's really alive in the music.
All those people who wants to meet him, because there are like thousands, everybody wants to audition to him, everybody wants to meet him.
Finding the money, finding the partners, finding the sponsors is a constant preoccupation for the organization.
It takes quite a bit of money for an orchestra to operate. Most of that money is raised at night, particularly after great concerts.
If you don't know how to deal with people, if you don't have managerial skills, if you don't know how to influence and get everybody on the same page, you're going to have a lot of problems. A conductor, more than anything, has to be incredibly skilled at this level of social intelligence.
It's like Karajan said, you know, that conducting an orchestra is like jumping with a horse. You know, you have to set it up right. But then you have to hold on and let the horse jump.
I enjoy getting to know different personalities, and every orchestra has its own personality.
It's a big family. Often I thought also to go away, you know, make a little bit more money. But if it's your family, then you stay.
Everybody in this orchestra loves what they do and is completely emotionally and intellectually invested in what they're doing. Everybody is there with their heart and soul and mind, and it's fantastic. I can't imagine being anywhere else.
We need to have a greater sense of history. A lot of people, young people in particular, are more connected to rock music, let's just be honest, or to hip hop, or to these newer genres of music. But they're not aware that the history of Western music that we listen to all began with classical music.
I used to listen to Bach when we were in the Beatles. That was probably our favorite composer then. I like Monteverdi, because I think there's a lot in common with early Beatle music.
You have to be mindful of the fact that in this day and age, the number of things that people are constantly offered in terms of entertainment, you know, basically things to do on their Saturday night, is vast. And you do have to figure out a way to make this relevant to them.
Whether you like orchestral music or not, if you have an appreciation for what makes a great city, certainly art and culture and the creative economy are part of any great city, not just in America, but anywhere in the world.
A year after the Honolulu Symphony declared bankruptcy and stopped holding concerts, closed down the 110-year-old orchestra.
Leaders of Louisville's orchestra filed for bankruptcy today. The New Mexico Symphony Orchestra is going out of business. Financial trouble for the orchestra has been a familiar refrain.
I don't have the full knowledge to be able to appreciate it.
It just has become obsolete after a while because no one really makes it anymore.
I just think people like music with words.
I love 20th century music like Debussy and Scriabin. They had huge influences on rock and roll, and they are wild music.
If you go to a concert once and you didn't like it, sorry, I tried, not my thing, never again. Use the same logic with movies. I went to movies once, didn't like the movie, never again. You think that you lost your mind.
If your main goal in life is to have a family, then you probably should not aim for mastery because it's not conducive. The two aren't conducive to each other. Your love is going into your work. But for a marriage, it's hard to make that balance. And the people that can and do it are real masters.
You haven't talked about how you met Tatiana.
I don't want to go too much into it.
You don't have
I
to.
can just say a couple of things.
Sure.
So I met Tanya when I was in London. She was still studying in the Royal Academy.
That's just lessons in life, you know, lessons in life. You think certain things never happen, will never happen to you, and they do. You know, the divorce happens, many other things happen which you either later regret or don't even understand how they happen. Three weeks ago, I was very, very honored to be conducting Berlin Philharmonic, and this week, Maris Janssons, a great Latvian conductor, canceled, and they called me. Said, Paavo, would you like to come? We would like you to come. And you know what? I sat there, I thought for 2 seconds, I said, no. I was dying to go there. But I couldn't, the option of not coming to see the kids, after not seeing them for 2 months, was simply not possible for me. 10 years ago, I probably would have said yes. Then you live and learn.
Jazz is one of the few things that relaxes me. If I'm not studying or performing, you can probably find me listening to jazz. It's more similar to classical music than people might imagine.
I met Ed Moss at a jazz club. I was totally sort of in awe of his music making, and he has his jazz club that he owns now in a historic Cincinnati building. It sort of fits exactly what Ed Moss is like, you know. He sort of plays when he wants to, and he doesn't play when he doesn't want to. And you have to kind of show up there and figure out, is it going to be on or not? He is a wonderful musician, and when he plays, he also kind of, you feel that there is no plan, even though he knows exactly what he's doing, but it's so intuitive and it's so incredibly free and emotional.
Let's get in.
Hi.
Jazz love. You love jazz? You do.
I do. It's one of my most favorite.
Do a bass like mine too.
Our music business is very often so career-oriented, and it is so disturbing because it's all about sort of one level after another rather than the essence of it, which is music. He's a musician. All that stuff that surrounds music business is so unimportant. Somebody of this caliber is not universally known. I admire his perseverance of staying with music, with still giving it all. It's all about music, and when he sits, he plays, and he plays like a god.
You're the man. I appreciate it. You're the man.
A group needs a kind of transcendent cause that makes everybody believe that they're not just sitting there playing music for this one concert, but they're creating something beautiful that's even larger than just them as an individual. And what a great leader does is they're able to bring everybody to the same page. They're a uniting force. What they've learned over the years is that you're appealing to their greater spirit in them, that together we can create a work of art that's just magnificent.
The Schneller is 524, take 15. Thank you.
A great business leader or a great military leader, he's saying you're not just fighting a war, this is a cause that we're all fighting for.
It was more difficult in the old days with the records and all that things, but now it's much easier to enjoy all kinds of music.
In the past, without recordings, basically the only way you heard music was either to go to a performance or make it yourself. And now we're much more passive listeners.
We have access now to through the internet, YouTube. You can go on YouTube and watch old performances, new performances, everything you want.
The music of the past, even several decades past, fell out of repertoire immediately. Now we have 400 years of musical experience that is available to us both through live performance and through recordings.
My father, he was like the first conductor who studied in abroad, so to speak, even though it was part of the Soviet Union. When he came back to Estonia at a very young age of like 22 or 23, he was appointed the music director of the National Orchestra Estonia, the opera, and the chamber orchestra. In Soviet Union, we all lived in a kind of a subliminal fear. I remember clearly my parents really wanting to talk privately about something political or whatever. They would go to the bathroom and turn on the faucet. As he traveled as a guest conductor, the Soviet authorities made sure that the family stays behind as a hostages, so to speak, so that my father would then come back. They were good friends, and when my Arvo Pärt wrote the piece Credo, my father premiered it. Credo, of course, is on a religious text, and in a Soviet situation, religion, anything to do with a religious text were basically banned. It was also very popular after the first performance. It was immensely well received, and so my father was pretty much asked not to perform it again, and he did it anyway. And after that, of course, his life became very difficult in Soviet Union.
Are we recording? All right, we're doing whatever you want to go.
Dear friends, this is Paavo Järvi, music director of Frankfurt Radio Symphony Orchestra.
Why don't you try it again from the top?
No, well, I mean, I'm sort of improvising because it has to be kind of spontaneous, you know. Okay, I'll try again. Dear friends, this is Paavo Järvi, the music director of the Frankfurt Radio Symphony Orchestra. I would like to say how much I enjoy coming to Japan and how much I look forward to coming to Japan. It is one of those countries that I feel the audience is most receptive and knows how to listen and enjoys serious, long, deep music. For me, being music director of more than one orchestra has very much to do with the fact that each one has something unique to offer, and I enjoy variety.
I work with people from all different countries, and I went to school with people from all different countries, because classical music is extremely international. The thing I find most rewarding about music is connecting with people through music, connecting with the audience, connecting with the people on stage.
Music has the ability to say things in descriptive detail that you really wouldn't be able to say at all with words. You wouldn't be able to come close, I don't think.
Long time no see. Long time no see, is it?
NHK's Symphony Orchestra has chosen a 49-year-old Estonian American as its next chief conductor. Paavo Järvi has received several awards during his international career, including a Grammy.
Henry Kissinger negotiated a deal with Russians on behalf of Israel to let the Jewish population of Soviet Union to so-called reunite their families in Israel. My mother was very clever in sort of convincing the authorities that she had a brother in Israel, which of course she's an only child, but somehow with her powers of persuasion, she managed to get permission to leave Soviet Union and reunite our families in Israel. And once we were in Vienna, of course, we came to the United States. Being nationalistic in a country like Estonia, where you have 1.5 million people, is a way of survival. It's because everybody has been trying to kind of make our culture obsolete. Being small and incredibly proud of our culture and our language, that the nationalism as such was something that was sort of part of our existence.
It was an extraordinary show of mass defiance in the Baltic region of the Soviet Union.
There are only 1.5 million people. The army is small, but we are determined people. They took away a lot, but they won't take away music. For us Estonians, music is important. Music is powerful. It can start wars and it can stop them.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I remember being in the United States, being sort of amazed that this is actually happening, because who would have ever thought that Soviet Union would collapse? This is actually happening. This is actually, I will actually be able to go back to Estonia someday. And I remember it just being just a shock, because I knew by coming to the United States that I will never see this Estonia again. It's maybe the combination of the environment, the ease of being in a wonderful, small, provincial town, which is just, for me, terribly charming, beautiful, surrounded by water, and being surrounded by family. Pärnu is a place where we spent all our summers. It is something that for us started as a kind of a natural desire to kind of get everybody together in our family and combine music and family. It also then grew into this conducting course, because teaching conducting is a big passion for my father, and I have sort of inherited it.
That's a really important part of mastery, is that ability to have a mentor, somebody that you can literally physically observe and absorb their energy and spirit. You're not just simply watching them, you're experiencing them inside yourself. You need that visceral, human, physical connection. It's a very, very powerful way of learning.
The winner is Mr. Jose Luis Gomez Rios.
One of the wonderful things that happened to me that changed my life out of being a competition winner was the fact of working with Paavo, because immediately what happened is that the orchestra and Paavo wanted to have an assistant, and when they saw me, he was happy.
You can tell that the person has personality, and that gift of communication, that is something that one cannot learn.
It's an emotional relationship that you have with your mentor. It's somebody that you respect and admire, and that you could see yourself, I could be that person.
This is a festival that carries our name. This is the place that gave birth to us. This is the place that considers us the kind of cultural icons of their country. My father is a great man. He's a legend. Because of our schedules, I don't get to see him often. When I do see him, it's in Estonia. It's a very special place. He is, on one hand, the biggest influence and a mentor I've ever had. Without him, I would never be a conductor. On the other hand, he's my biggest fan. He's somebody who looks on the internet to see what's written about me, and when he sees something good, email me the link and say, "Congratulations, my son, I love you." And this is, a very famous, great man who could just sort of take anything for granted, but he is a huge fan.
and I want to share it with anyone. If there is one person in 2,000 people audience, I'll be satisfied. I don't care. It's just, we are communicators. Music is life. And I couldn't imagine living without it. It stays with you, and it's music. It's your companion. Music, it's something that stays all the time.
You have to have the guts, the gumption, to realize from within. It can only come from within. I've learned as much as I can learn, and I need to express myself now, and it's time for me to set out on my own.
This is my third season as the music director of Orchestra de Paris. Opening in Paris with the orchestra that is really world-class, with live and television. It has to look good, it has to sound good, it has to fly off the stage. It's the first concert of the season. It's also showing, yes, we're back.
Programming is an art form in itself. You gotta sell tickets, you have to have stars, got to flow a certain way.
There's 36 million students in China studying piano alone. When Lang Lang applied for the Beijing Conservatory, he was one of 3,000 music students that had gone through already grueling demands for 12 slots. To get in requires from age 4 or 5 a level of dedication, intensity, focus that is unmatched by any athlete.
I'm a big dreamer, so when I was a kid, I really wanted to become a musician. And somehow this drive, this inspiration from the music itself always drives me. We play, for me, very passionate, very emotional music.
There's a thin line between what the audience wants and that will challenge the musicians creatively. The goal is to find that perfect balance. When it comes down to it, it's the performance. And if you do your job, people will remember that concert for the rest of their lives.
Every little bit in this puzzle has to work.
Now, at the end of the day, what really matters is the level of performance.
It needs to be something that people forget about everything by listening to this concert.
There comes a point where you're sitting in a dressing room thinking, waiting, and then it hits you. There is no more time. People are in the seats. They're waiting. I can feel that. Before the concert like this, it requires a tremendous energy. That's why I wait until the last minute. And then, it's game time. Mirel is feeling sick and nervous. Everybody's anxious, but I must remain calm. The French Minister of Culture is about to get at the seats. That's why I wait to make us get feel. There is a moment right before you take the stage, a feeling it's like nothing else.
Conducting slow, quiet music, to me, is much more difficult than conducting big, energetic music because everybody's into it, everybody's playing.
What would you like your daughters to know about their daddy who has dedicated his life to what we call music?
I want them to come back to this moment when they are in Paris with me, coming to my opening concert, conducting and knowing that they are there in the audience makes all the difference to me. And then when I turn around and I take applause, everybody's clapping and they're waving it. That's the best feeling in the world, because they don't clap. They're like, hi, and it's like, and I'm trying to like, okay, you know, because this is something that I want them to remember these moments as special moments spent with me and spent with me through music. I think that he's hands down one of the greatest pianists ever. He is also an amazing personality, but none of that is as impressive as his sheer ability to communicate something really special when he's at the piano. The audiences in France, as you know, they are intuitive. You can feel that they are somehow involved in. They're not passive listeners. when you feel that it's really a special moment, something happened, you feel like you fly off the stage. I mean, you literally have this feeling that you have wings. It's the process of the performance that somehow brought you to this climax. It's very sexual, it's very erotic, it's very human.
Messieurs en place pour Stravinsky, s'il vous plaît. Place pour Stravinsky, merci.
In music, we are trapped in time. Each note is gone as soon as it is sounded, and it can never be recontemplated or heard again in that particular instant of rightness. It is always too late for a second look.
The fact that I'm even allowed to do what I'm doing, and that I can actually even consider it a job, which of course, I mean, it's absurd, it's a privilege, is something that I never thought that I will have in my life. We live, we die. Music is what's in between.
Actually, it's classical music is also very, beautiful and everything else, just like what you feel in the other fields in music. And so people should open their heart and to feel it.
I cannot imagine that my life would be sort of emotionally complete without this music that I love so much. I think it's very sad that
there are a relatively small number of people that know this music. You have to listen. You have to listen carefully.
I think one thing that people don't realize who don't know classical music is that it's got everything. It's got humor, it's got fun, it's got excitement that I think definitely rivals a rock concert as far as even just a pure physical energy that can be created by a great orchestra or a great soloist.
And it happens when you read a great book or you see a great movie and you walk out after that and you are a different person than you were going into it.
Everyone can find something in the arts that helps them say what they have to say. It helps them really express their voice, their individual voice, and connect with the greater world around them.
A lot of people think that they have to have a degree in classical music in order to be able to appreciate it, and that's just not true, because anybody can be moved to tears by a really compelling performance of Brahms' violin concerto.
The music is the closest thing to God, literally. There is no such thing that is closer.
Like my son, I offer him more of a structured lifestyle than what I've experienced, and it allows him to be he'll be classically trained by the time he's 20 years old, because he takes an hour and a half and 2 hours out of the day.
For me, that gives me hope. That means there are a lot of people out there who love this, who want to be doing it with their lives.
I see a bright future for classical music.
Music, it gives you hope for a better day. Like, you could be feeling so low, and you either start playing or you listen to music and you automatically just feel better, because that's the kind of spirit it brings with it.
The roots of our music go back to generation way back in time. I think it's important to keep this sense of continuity alive.
Once you're lucky enough to kind of fall in love with it, you're never alone, because this music thing sits and lives inside you.